Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into some fascinating research from Singularity Point Research on a space data company called SPIR Global. And it all boils down to one really compelling question. Could this company be on the verge of an absolutely explosive breakout, just like we saw with another big name in the industry? Let's get into it. Okay, but first, a mandatory disclaimer from the source, which I will read for you in full. Singularity Point Research, SPR, is a laboratory for intellectual curiosity, not a financial advisory firm. The musings of SPV are rooted in market mechanics and the laws of physics, both of which are notoriously indifferent to your bank account. All data provided is for research purposes only. Past performance is no guarantee of future results, and chasing asymmetric upside is a high-stakes game. Don't bet the farm on the ramblings of a researcher. Always consult a licensed professional and do your own due diligence. In short, I provide a route, but you're the one behind the wheel. All right, with that out of the way, let's jump right in. The entire analysis here is built around one single, powerful idea. Could we be watching history repeat itself in the space industry right now? The research suggests a pattern is taking shape with SPIR Global, and it looks eerily familiar. To really get it, we need to rewind the clock just a little bit to a story many of you probably followed closely: Rocket Lab. Not that long ago, a lot of people were dismissing it as a speculative toy, stuck trading at just $4 or $5. But then, it landed some massive defense contracts, and almost overnight, the story completely flipped. It became a defense titan, and its value just soared. And that, right there, is the core thesis of this entire analysis. The argument is that SPIR Global is standing at that exact same crossroads today. It's right on the cusp of making that same leap, from a company people see as a speculative bet to one they see as a proven powerhouse. So what is it that SPIR actually does? This is where things get really interesting. See, most people hear satellite company and they think of cameras, satellites taking pictures of Earth. Well, you need to throw that idea out. SPIR's business isn't about seeing the planet, it's about listening to it. Okay, for example, think of them as ghost ship hunters. A ship involved in, say, illegal fishing can just turn off its public transponder to go dark. A camera satellite can't see through clouds, but SPIR's network can actually hear the faint, unique radio hum coming from that ship's own radar and engines. It's called RF intelligence, and it means they can find that ship in real time no matter where it tries to hide. Next up is something the source calls space rental. Let's say you've developed some new kind of sensor and you need to test it in orbit. Well, instead of spending millions and millions of dollars to build and launch your own satellite, you can just rent a little bit of space on one of SPIR's 100+ satellites that are already up there. It's a game changer, basically space as a service. And this might be the coolest example of their tech. They create what are basically weather X-rays. So instead of looking at clouds, their satellites measure how GPS signals from space actually bend when they pass through Earth's atmosphere. By analyzing that bend, they can get an incredibly precise reading of air temperature, pressure, and moisture. That's data they sell to groups like NOAA to make things like hurricane forecasts way more accurate. Okay, now let's talk about the first big catalyst in this story. It's a financial move that, on the surface, looked like bad news to a lot of people, but as the research argues, it was actually a brilliant strategic pivot. So here's what happened. SPIR sold off its maritime business. When the news hit, some investors saw that and thought, wait a minute, their revenue is going down. And on paper, yeah, that's what it looked like, a smaller top line. But here's the other side of that deal. In exchange for that business segment, SPIR got a massive check, $241 million. A huge injection of cash right into the company. So, what's the first thing you do with a pile of cash like that? Well, SPIR did something incredible. They paid off their entire debt. All of it. They went from carrying debt to being completely debt-free practically overnight. That's a huge, huge move. And here's the kicker. Even after wiping the slate clean and paying off every single penny of debt, they still had around $100 million left over, just sitting in the bank. The research calls this a fortress balance sheet. It's the ultimate safety net, giving them an incredible amount of freedom to grow their best business lines without financial pressure. All right, catalyst number 2 is a strategic pivot into a very serious and very profitable new market: national defense. And this, right here, is where that comparison to Rocket Lab really starts to click into place. Not too long ago, something pivotal happened. SPIR officially won a spot in the U.S. Missile Defense Agency's SHIELD program. Now, this isn't just another contract. This means their technology is being woven directly into America's missile defense architecture. That's a massive vote of confidence. So you have to ask, why SPIR? Well, it goes back to their listening satellites. Turns out they are exceptionally good at detecting sophisticated electronic warfare tactics. Things like signal spoofing, where an adversary tries to fake a GPS location, or signal jamming, where they try to block our signals altogether. SPIR can cut through that noise. And this is exactly the kind of critical defense integration that was the launchpad for Rocket Lab's huge run-up. So we have the financial pivot and the defense pivot. The last piece of this puzzle is what the research calls the coiled spring. It's all about their financials, which look like they're wound up tight and just ready to uncoil. First off, the company is now guiding for revenue growth of over 30% in 2026. After getting rid of that slower growth maritime business, this shows that their core areas, the stuff they're really good at, are set to accelerate in a big way. And get this, on top of that growth, they already have a contract backlog of over $200 million. Now, that's not a guess or a forecast, that's guaranteed future revenue already signed and locked in. It gives you a crystal clear roadmap of where they're headed. And this brings us to the big one, the holy grail for any growing tech company. SPIR is targeting to become cash flow positive by the end of 2026. This is that magic moment, the point where a company stops burning through cash to fund its growth and actually starts generating its own. And according to this research, that moment, hitting positive cash flow, is often the trigger. See, right now, the market applies what's called a risk discount to the company because it's still burning cash. But the moment that stops, that entire discount can just vanish. And when it does, a company's valuation can get re-rated very, very quickly. So what's the big takeaway from all this? The analysis wraps up with this core idea from its lead researcher. Alpha is found at the bottleneck. The point is, the greatest opportunities often appear at that point of maximum pressure, that critical moment when a company is transitioning from high risk to high reward. And the question this research leaves us with is pretty simple. Is SPIR